When you were a teenager, Mom, everyone said you looked just like Joan Crawford. Or so you often told me. Of course, those eyebrows you painted on in her signature style didn't exactly hurt. Anyway, in those early images taken long before I was born, you were as glamorous as any movie star. I began putting together your tribute months before your death. You suffered the effects of breast cancer for nearly 20 years and were resigned to face the end with grace and dignity. Together, you and I had celebrated life through cinema from as far back as I can remember. You shared your earliest memories of Saturdays at the Pictures, and together we created our own memories watching Alice in Wonderland, and Night of the Hunter, and Alien, and Rocky Horror. What better way to say goodbye than making you the star of your own film? In June of 2010, during your last summer, I showed you the rough cut. It consisted of highlights from our family films, shot mostly by Dad, who had died of non-Hodgkin's lymphoma 10 years earlier. 10 years already. First I had lost him, and now you were going to leave me too. This was not going to be easy. I was your only son, and together we had guided each other through the 43 years our lives overlapped. As I pieced together your memorial, it occurred to me that Dad, with his little Super 8 camera from the 60s, had been a filmmaker in his own right. And by assembling these images he'd shot of us, Mom, I had found a way to collaborate with him at last. I'll never forget when the movie came to an end and you wiped away the tears. That was beautiful, you said. and then you gave me your notes for revisions. You'd always been a great supporter of my work, but never hesitated to be critical. So together, we put the final touches on the film that served as both a wake and funeral for the people we called our family. Friends, relatives, lovers, and everyone who had cared for you in the retirement community you had chosen as your final home. I filmed some of them waving goodbye and included that footage at the end of the film. Then I had you wave to the camera to say goodbye to us in your turn. A couple of months later, you called to tell me it was time. You were ready for me to come and see you off. I flew to you, learning from the hospice nurses at your bedside how to administer the morphine during your final nights. After you took your first dropper of the blue syrup, I went out to stock up on food so I wouldn't have to leave your side again till the very end. When I returned, you said, "It's just like I hoped it would be." The morphine buzz had washed over you to let you finally relax. That night, we watched a couple of films together. We had said all we had to say after all, and watching movies was what we both loved to do more than just about anything else. You were so sharp that night, recalling your memories of all the films we had seen together. It was hard to believe you wouldn't be around in just a couple of more days. Halfway through bringing up baby, you really started to sleep. I suppose the hilarious image of Cary Grant in a sheer nightgown with feathery cuffs will always bring me to tears. Towards the very end, as you slipped away from your body, language left you till only your breath remained. You waited till the caregivers had finished cleaning you to breathe your very last breath. Wrapped in fresh white sheets, you exited your body with a deep guttural sigh while I held your hand and sang, "Be not afraid." The last bits of phlegm and bile that had been accumulating your chest came up, a bit like Linda Blair coughing up the last of her demons. You'd always loved your horror movies. On the day you left me, I went through 3 major life events at once. The loss of a mother, the loss of my best friend, and my first experience watching a person leave her body forever. I'd lost many friends over the years, many of them to HIV, but I'd never been there through the very last moments. I studied your body for a while as it started getting cold, trying to comprehend what had just happened. And then I turned the camera on you one last time, so that I could always remind myself that once you had died, your body was no longer you. They took you away, and I wandered off to sit alone by Lake Michigan. I stared out at the dark water, which, along with an ominously clear and empty sky, seemed to stretch into infinity, mirroring the endless void you had left behind. Somehow, all of nature seemed aware of the tragedy of your passing, even as it moved forward without a pause. Despite the crushing blow of sorrow that accompanied these emotions, I felt infused with a powerful transformative joy. You had completed a life that had been lived to its fullest right up till the end. And I had made it with you this far to let you die feeling proud of your only child. You had given birth to me, nursed me to health when I was sick, protected me against bullies and homophobes, and never stopped being there for me. At the memorial service, I somehow managed to get through my speech. I played the film for those who came to pay their respects. There wasn't a dry eye in the house. So I guess you could say our movie was a hit, Mom. A few days later, a couple of friends accompanied me to the cemetery where you and Dad had purchased joint plots. We hummed the theme to Mission Impossible as I broke out the garden trowel. I buried your ashes beside him with my own bare hands, just like I said I would. So now, you've become part of the earth, if for whatever reason that ends up making a difference. Flying over Chicago on the way back to Canada, my latest home, I sobbed as I studied the skyline of the city we had shared together. City of the Untouchables, and the Blues Brothers, and ordinary people. And a city full of memories shared with you. An orphan now, there's no one I can call to say, hey, remember the time we went to see... I am the sole keeper of our times together, our family memories, our history. As I approached Toronto, I thumbed through your last journal, which I had taken with me from among the objects you left behind. You had made your last entry while I was out getting groceries, right after giving you your first dose of morphine.